It was a glance, just a glance, between a reigning king and the woman who will one day carry his crown forward. Brief, wordless, watched by everyone in the room, and understood in that moment by all of them. King Charles turned toward Catherine near the end of the Coronation Anniversary celebration at Buckingham Palace. His expression, according to those present, was not ceremonial. It was personal, almost relieved. And what passed between them in those few seconds told the guests gathered in that room something the palace had never officially announced. The monarchy had already made a decision about its future, and Catherine was at the center of it. If moments like this tell you something that press releases never will, subscribe now and be here when the next one happens. The signs had been building for days before the celebration itself began. Security access points at Buckingham Palace were quietly adjusted. Certain corridors were temporarily restricted without public explanation. Staff members who normally moved through the building with confidence reportedly became careful with their words. Even among colleagues they trusted. For anyone who understands how a royal household signals that something significant is being prepared, the tension was impossible to ignore. In the days before the anniversary event, King Charles called a private meeting, not a routine briefing, an urgent, strategic gathering involving Prince William, Catherine, and senior advisors connected to the future direction of the monarchy. Sources describe the conversation as emotionally charged, deeply consequential, and far more substantial than anything the palace publicly acknowledged around it. According to insiders, Catherine was informed during that meeting of a formal expansion of her ceremonial role, not a minor scheduling adjustment, a deliberate repositioning, one designed to change how the palace intended to present her to the nation going forward. Staff were reportedly told not to discuss the revisions to the anniversary protocols. Rehearsal arrangements were rewritten at the last possible moment. And yet, when the evening arrived, even longtime royal observers sensed immediately that something about this gathering was different. Catherine was positioned during key ceremonial moments unusually close to King Charles, in spaces traditionally reserved for the most senior sovereign symbolism. The procession order had been revised. Guests who arrived expecting a standard anniversary celebration quietly realized that the evening had a different center of gravity than anyone had publicly acknowledged. I keep thinking about what it means to be that person, standing at the visible center of the monarchy's future while a reigning king is still on the throne. That is a weight most people cannot fully imagine. And from everything visible that evening, Catherine carried it without allowing it to show. Not everyone in the room celebrated the shift. Insiders describe Camilla appearing tense during portions of the evening, not, sources insist, out of personal rivalry, but because of what the moment represented structurally. For years, her position within the institution had required patience, careful management, and gradual public acceptance. That evening, the institution's attention appeared to be centered somewhere else. Meanwhile, William remained visibly close to Catherine throughout, not hovering, deliberate, as though he understood exactly what the evening was asking of both of them, and was determined that the image of unity would be complete. Senior aristocrats in attendance were reportedly stunned by the level of ceremonial prominence Catherine received. Comparisons to the late Queen Elizabeth II were quietly made, though insiders insist the palace was determined to frame Catherine differently, not as a figure of emotional disruption, but as a disciplined guardian of continuity during a fragile moment for the institution. And then came the glance. Near the end of the evening, Charles turned toward Catherine with that expression. Personal, quiet, almost relieved. She met his eyes with the composure that has increasingly defined her public role. And in that moment, without a word, something the palace had been managing carefully for months became visible to everyone present. Outside the gates, crowds were reportedly chanting her name before the evening was even fully over. Palace staff described the atmosphere afterward as historic, unlike anything they had witnessed in years. The public, it seemed, had already reached the same conclusion the institution had quietly reached inside. The anniversary did not resolve the transition. It began it in the open. The pace of what follows how quickly Catherine's responsibilities expand, and what that means for other figures within the royal household remains genuinely uncertain. But one thing the evening made very difficult to argue with is this. Catherine is no longer simply respected within the monarchy. She is viewed, by those who run it, as essential to its survival. Which leaves the question that actually matters. Is the palace elevating Catherine because Charles genuinely believes she is ready to carry the institution forward, or because the monarchy is more fragile right now than anyone will officially admit? Those two things lead to very different futures for her. Leave your answer below. And if this kind of analysis, the quiet signals, the unspoken shifts, is why you come here, this is where that story lives.